Okay, we are ready to do the refret on this guitar. As you can see, the fretboard's been fully leveled and it's been restained and it has now dried. So let's take a look at what we're going to need to do our refret job. Obviously your frets, I have pre-cut these. I like to use this little nut file right here, and I'll show you how to use that in a minute. Your fretting hammer, your guide, you can level your frets. Rubber gloves if you prefer. I don't use them, but if you need to use them, I would get some rubber gloves if you're worried about the glue mess. Caliper, a little bit of cold water here, a cleaning rag obviously, a couple of clamps, and of course our glue. Now that you've seen all the things needed to do the refret, let's go ahead and get started. First thing I like to do is take this nut file on the 12 thousand side. This has two sizes, 20 thousandths and 12 thousandths. I use a 12 thousandth side to take a little stroke across the top of that slot. And all I'm doing is V'ing the top of the slot out to make it a little easier to receive the tang off of our fret. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of those. And take our little glue needle here. This has got a fairly narrow tip. We're going to fill the slot with the glue. Now obviously I've already installed this first one here. That was because it takes a little while to get the glue flowing through this little needle. So we're going to go ahead and move on. It's a good idea to try and get the center of the fret in the center of the fretboard. I mean, granted that this is flat, so it's going to get pressed down, but if you're in the middle, it's just easier. It stays better because the arc on both sides is the same distance, so it's going to get about the same amount of pressure on it when you clamp it. That's the only thing that's there, or the only thing I should mention. So get them in there, give them a little tap with the hammer, just to get the end started. This last one started. You can see a little bit of glue coming out the sides. Use your rag here, a little bit of cold water. Just clean that glue up. You'll notice that some of the black dye is coming off of the fretboard. When you clean this with cold water, it's not a problem. We'll go ahead and reapply that. Make sure you get that all off of there, all that glue. Alright, now what I do is I take my little piece of spruce here. Use these types of clamps at the very top of this because of the V. So these have got a little notch in them that'll fit that V real nicely. Just right there. Just want to get that started. The other one on there. And give them both a good squeeze. And that'll hold those in there nicely. Now that you've seen the installation of these first 4 here with little hand clamps through the magic of time-lapse photography, I'm going to go ahead and complete this fretboard. Now there's 2 things I should mention first of all. The tight bond that I use in this fine applicator needle has been thinned down about 20%. It doesn't affect the glue strength, it just affects the set time. So normally a half-hour set, you're looking at 45 minutes or an hour. But because we're going to leave these clamps on here for 24 hours, it's irrelevant at this. Okay. Secondly, we're going to use another hand clamp right here to do this first one. And then we're going to use a C-clamp on the heel of the neck block right here. And then a second C-clamp inside the sound hole at the very end, which you can see I've taped a little pad to, which slides underneath that first cross brace here and sits up into the body where the repair has been made, so that can sit in there and hold that down nice and tight. And then in 24 hours this all should be set and we'll be able to move on to leveling the frets. Okay, as you can see, all the frets are glued in place. Everything is nice and solid now. I've nipped these flush already. I've just left these last few on here just to show you how this tool works. This is obviously just a fret nipper. What makes it specialized for musical instruments is you can see that this top is flush with the cutting blade versus the ones you see in the hardware store. They have the dip into it. This does not. It's a hardened edge. Boom, and it's flush just like that. Move that out of the way so you're not scratching up your instrument by dragging them over the top of those. Put this out of the way as well because you're finished with it. Okay, now you've got it here, so what you're going to need to do is obviously level off these frets. First thing you want to do is check and see how level they are. They should be pretty good because you've already taken the time to level this fretboard off real well. Little rock there, a little bit there, a little bit. For the most part, these are pretty good. That's not to say you're not going to have to do any dressing. You always have to do some sort of fret dressing once you put new frets in here. But these are not too bad. First thing we want to do is flush these all off. Nice with the edge. And again, you want to use a tool like this. This one I've bought. I've made a few of these as well. It's just easier to buy them. Less headache. It's got a file in it right here at 90 degrees. Which we'll be using first to square everything up. The other side has a 30-degree angle on it so that we can bring those frets up on an angle so that your fingers stay in better condition when playing. And it's not a very complicated operation. It's just a matter of setting it on your frets. And it might take you a little bit to get going at first, but start out easy. notice that it's sliding across there nice and easy now. That feels pretty good. I should say that make sure that this does not extend below that and start scratching up your top. You want to check that before you do this. But this side is nice and square. We're going to go ahead and do the other side. Then it'll start off a little rough, but once you get it make sure that when you're doing this, that this is flush on top of these flat. It's not tipped like this. You're not bending it back. Make sure you're staying flat. You want to be conscious of that. And that feels nice and square. So now we're going to go ahead, turn it around, use our 30-degree bevel on that same side. Making sure that you're flat here on top of the frets. Now that you've seen a little bit of that, let's speed things up. Okay, our fretboard is now leveled. As you noticed, I stopped a few times and pointed to this. This is where it moves. You know, what's high and what's low moves. This is why there's the constant checking back and forth. But this fretboard is now level. Now what it's going to require is cleaning of all the little metal debris on it, the dust. That's going to need to be cleaned off of here. We're also going to redarken any light areas of stain. And then we're going to recrown. That is going to be a separate video. I don't want to overwhelm you with running a half-hour video on doing this and you try to catch everything. I think if I do it in shorter segments, you'll be able to go back to what you need to look at again quicker than fishing through a half-hour or 45-minute video.